Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here to introduce you to the seventh Q&A session of this on-demand virtual course, Initiation into Spiritism. As you may recall, this course started earlier this year with the focus of bringing discussions based on the book by Terezinha Oliveira. How does this course work? Well, each week on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern, a new lesson is released, and Spiritus speakers from all over the U.S. will address 1 to 2 chapters of Terezinha's book. I'm so happy to be a part of this dialogue around the content of lessons 31 and 33. So, thank you for joining us here today in this live session. So, just a reminder to all of you who are watching this live stream, we've already received questions, but definitely want to invite everyone to send us your comments or additional questions via the chat window that you might have. So, I would like to welcome each presenter to provide a short summary of their lessons. Welcome, Marcelo and Flavio. Marcelo. Hello,
Hey,
Flavio. Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning,
Good to be
folks.
here.
Great to be here with you guys. Always a pleasure to see these beautiful faces with us. Thank you, Kirsten and Marcel.
Yay. Well, please, Marcelo, why don't we start with you giving us a short summary of your lesson?
Okay, so my lesson from the book into Spiritism is on Christian vigilance. So it's chapter 34. And in this lesson, Terezinha Oliveira, she brings us the teaching that Jesus taught the disciples, watch and pray. So I just read here, it is on Matthew 26, verse 41. Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. So Terezinha de Oliveira, she brings this lesson and then she explains to us what Jesus means by giving that advice to the disciples and of course to all of us, and how we can bring that advice into our daily lives, especially through the eyes of the Spiritism. So what we have to see here, so the first part, watch, that it's the main name of the chapter, that is on Christian vigilance. So how to watch, how to keep this vigilance on the eyes of Christianity and Spiritism. So of course we know that basically when we are talking about vigilance, about watching, what comes to our minds, at least what comes to my mind, would be like security guards, especially today security cameras. So like watching around our house or our neighborhood to see if someone is trying to trespass our property to come into our homes, or when we are walking the street in a big city to watch around to see if anybody's coming, if there is any danger around us. But of course, here when we are talking about spiritism and our spirituality and our spiritual growth, basically it's not what is coming from the outside that is most important, but what we do have inside of us. So the first lesson here would be, as Terezinha brings to us, and Spiritism brings to us, to watch our own behavior, to watch ourselves, to watch our vices. For example, bringing another teaching from the Spirit's book, that the Spirits always tell us to know thyself. So to really know how we are and how we behave according to the situations that we face in our daily activities. So by watching that, by watching ourselves, we are able to see all the vices that we have, all the issues that we have within us that we still need to overcome. Because let's face it, that there's a lot that we do have to overcome. Speaking for myself, because if you think we are still here in a planet of trials and expiation, so we do have many things to work on and to grow. So when we are talking about this vigilance, is to first to watch ourselves, to watch how we are and how we can improve that, and then of course to watch what's happening around us. But here is very important that she brings that it's not about watching what's happening around us, like to point out other people's mistake, but to see how people's reactions and how the environment around us can influence us. So the important thing here is, okay, if I see someone gossiping, I need to be watchful, because otherwise I can be the one to gossip too. Just to give one example. So we need to know what are the situations outside that can trigger the vices that we do have, so we can be watchful in those situations, not to allow uh, those triggers to get us. And again, for us to know how to control ourselves, how to better behave, and to know how and what we need to do to overcome all the vices that we still have. So basically would be those two parts: for us to be watchful about what we are and how we are, and what the outside environment can bring to us to trigger all those vices that we still have. And the second part of this teaching that Jesus brings, so watch and pray, that means for us to always keep this connection to the with the spirit world, and especially with our guardian angels, to Jesus, and to all the elevated spirits. So, for example, a moment that I see any situation, any temptation that can I may fall into that, so I can quickly change my mind and pray, because by doing that we are connecting ourselves to the higher realm, and that way we can receive the help that we need to keep control and to overcome all the situations that we face. So would be those two parts: watch and pray. And if you see, for us not to fall into temptation, because as we see from our Father's prayer, the temptations will be there, we will face temptations. So it's up to us to know how to be stronger, how to improve ourselves in order not to fall into those temptations. So basically that would be to be on Christian vigilance according to Spiritism, and that's basically what Teresinha de Oliveira brings to us in this chapter.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marcelo, for sharing that. I'm going to turn it over to Flavio to give us a brief synopsis of his short summary of his lesson as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Kirsten. So, folks, you may remember the topic that we covered in our discussion was give freely. What you have received for free, and this is from lesson 33 of this amazing book. Right, the scripture that the author used is from Jesus, according to Matthew chapter 10, verse 18. Restore health to the sick, raise the dead, heal lepers, and cast out demons. Give freely what you have received freely. As we learn through Spiritism or from Spiritism, mediumship is something that's very sacred and must be really practiced in a holy and religious manner. But if there is one type of mediumship that requires this utmost attitude or most complete attitude, it is healing mediumship. Well, we may be thinking, how about physicians, nurses? Our dear friend Kirsten, she's a nurse, right? And our friends from the medical world overall, don't they work to heal folks as well? Yes, they do. Don't they charge for their work? Yes, they do. But they do so as a fruit of their studies, of their college degrees, of their dedications, sometimes even at the price of a painful sacrifice to really study this amazing body that we have, this amazing machine that we call our bodies. So therefore, they absolutely should be paid for their dedication, commitment, sacrifice, and everything else. If you look at helium mediums, however, they transmit the healthful fluid or energy from the good spirits. And according to what we learned from Spiritism, we do not have the right to sell it, folks. Although poor, for example, Jesus and all the 12 disciples charge nothing for the healings they have obtained or they have given, so to speak. So this idea that Jesus prescribes that one we really should never change for something that we were not paid for to get it. What the disciples, you may be asking the question, what the disciples have received freely was simply the fact that they were able to heal the sick through the imposing of hands. If you go to any spiritist center, you go through the work of pastors or imposing the hand, as we learned from Jesus, right? Which is the same way as the disciples did by casting out demons, which are basically evil spirits. This gift, my friends, was given to the disciples freely by our heavenly God for the relief of those who were suffering, who were in danger, who were really at the verge of making atrocities or making even more sins or more wrongdoings. So, in other words, that was a mission for the disciples to heal the sick. And in that same sentiment, in that same work, they'll help spread the faith. Oh, did you hear what so and so did? He cured me. I'm much better now. So that's spreading the faith. The faith is what Jesus helped the disciples to do. He told them not to make a business out of it. He absolutely told the disciples not to make a business or an object of speculation or a way of making a living or supporting it oneself. So, but you may be asking the question, I don't have any money, you know, I'm a medium. Can I use that to really provide the bacon for my family? So for those folks that do not have the financial means to support themselves, right? As we learn through Spiritism, we or those folks should go and seek resources somewhere else other than mediumship. And obviously, if necessary or if they really need it, they devote some of the time, some of their spare time to help others, to really practice, mediumship, which is really the main objective of mediumship, is to help others, to counsel others, to point them in the right direction, and so forth. And the good thing about all this, folks, is that the good spirits or spirit guides or guardian angels, they'll take that into consideration. They'll take all of our dedication, all of our commitment, all of our sacrifices, and they'll look after us, whereby or else they'll really try to avoid those of us who intend to really work on mediumship to not really leverage it for a means of a material gain and so forth. So if you remember the words that Jesus left us 2,000 years ago, why do you call me Lord, 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 and if you do not do what I say? Folks, let's use what we learned from Spiritism. Let's use this knowledge that Allan Kardec brings, thanks to the good spirits that wrote the Medium's book. Kardec himself, as we also learned from the book, coined the term mediumship. Let's learn from the author that really brought us this dynamics, which is mediumship, to really heal, to cure, to spread faith, and to help others, not to make a business of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Flavio, for talking about your chapter 33, and also Marcelo for chapter 34. Thank you so much for discussing it. Before we go to the questions, I also just want to let our viewers know that Jusada couldn't be here, but we do have a short clip, a short synopsis of her chapters 31 and 32, mediumship and its development, plus mediumship and spiritism. So I'm going to ask Daniel to present Jusada's video now, and then we'll go to the questions.
Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be presenting the summary of lessons 31 and 32 from the book Initiation into Spiritism by Teresinha Oliveira. On these two chapters, we talked about mediumship. And of course, we mentioned what is mediumship, being a medium, the intermediary and between two planes, the ability that some people have to be more sensitive, so to say, of perceiving the presence of spirits, of receiving messages, be it through speaking, trance mediumship, or psychography, or any other kind of mediumship. Of course, we said that according to what we learn in the medium's book, everyone is a medium. All people are mediums. So, but there is a difference, and the only difference is that there are some people that really came in this incarnation with the commitment of using mediumship as an instrument, as a tool for their own evolvement and to help and facilitate the evolvement of others through the communications, the instructions they are going to be receiving from the spirits. It has to be taken very seriously. It requires us to have a personal commitment to self-improvement, because in the same way that here on earth we are going to be surrounded by people that think alike us, we also are going to be surrounded by spirits that are more alike us. So if we want to communicate with spirits that are of a more evolved nature, they have to see our efforts in becoming more so to say more, more improved in the sense of working to acquire more virtues, to rid ourselves from so many imperfections we still carry. Being a medium is not a privilege, it's a commitment. And it doesn't mean that because I am a medium, I'm more special than other person or not, or that there are differences in mediumship, that some mediums may be better than others. The only thing that are going to make us better is how we use our mediumship, how we commit to the use of mediumship. And also in this chapter, Teresinha Oliveira mentions the aspect that prohibition that we have in the Bible about Moses, the prohibition of talking to spirits, because at that time people were using mediumship just for as fortune tellers, just for trivial purposes, which is not the purpose of mediumship when we are talking about spiritism. Is there any way for us to know if we are mediums or not? We have to observe. The phenomenon is going to be repeated, is going to be showing in our lives. Not everything that symptom that we may present may be related to any kind of spiritual interference. So it is very important for us to pay attention, even to follow through any kind of symptoms that we may present, signs with not only a spiritist institution, but also to with doctors going through, see if there is not an organic cause that may be linked to this. We have so many books, so many literature that can help us in the sense of learning more about mediumship. So mediumship, again, just to summarize even more, is for us to use with responsibility, to use the accounts that we are receiving from the spirit realm to make our lives here on this planet better, for us not to go through the same mistakes that we have been committing in the past, and learning from their experiences, from their instructions, and using this way, this opportunity, this important tool for us to improve our lives. It has always been there. It is not something that came about just with spiritism. There was always a communication between the two worlds, and they are going to last. And the more we evolve, the more it's going to be part of our nature, of who we are, and our purpose of being here on this planet to improve ourselves and to be each time more capable of connecting and feel our heavenly creator within us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jasada. I know you couldn't be with us live, but it's still great to hear from you. So, moving it right along, just to reorient us and to let our viewers know that Marcelo and Flavio actually will be answering the questions that we received on Jasada's behalf. So, now we're going to be addressing your questions, beginning with the questions that have been sent in. And we're going to proceed in a round robin style, one question per speaker. So we'll start with the first question, going to Marcelo. And let me just move my screen. Marcelo, what is mediumship and what does it mean to be a medium?
Well, so mediumship would be this, let's say, this interchange between the spirit world and the physical world. As here, incarnate spirits, incarnate beings, because it's important for us always to remind that we are spirits. We are created spirits by God, and we are having this physical experience. We come here to planet Earth or to any other planet to reincarnate so we can improve ourselves by through this process of reincarnation. So it's not because we are here on Earth that we are not spirits anymore. We are still spirits, and the mediumship is this tool that we have to have this communication, this interchange between us while we are incarnate in the physical world and the spirits that are with us in the spirit world. So and what it means to be a medium. To be a medium would be exactly to have this capability, to have this connection with the spiritual world. And it's important for us to know that, as Kardec says and the Spiritism says, we are all mediums in a way that we are all the time having this interchange, this exchange with the spiritual world. It's not because I cannot see spirits, for example, I cannot hear them, that I'm not a medium. I am a medium because I am receiving this influence from the spirits all the time. We are receiving influence from the spirit world all the time. So in that way, we spiritists, we say that we are all mediums because all the time we have this exchange, we have this interaction with the spirit world, whether we can actually feel it or we can actually see that not I don't want to use the verb see, but we can notice that. It's better to say that whether we can notice that or not, we are all the time having this exchange with the spirit world. So we have this mediumship and we are all mediums in that sense.
Perfect. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Marcelo. So now our next question is going to go to Flavio. What does Spiritism teach about mediumship? Oops, sorry. What does Spiritism teach about mediumship? If I'm a Spiritist medium, what should be my goal for using this capability?
Oh my God, I would need just 2 hours to answer that. No, just kidding. I think it's important for us to start with the idea that in the universe, everything is energy, and its most in its most infinite forms, right? So mediumship involves complex and also subtle energy forms, right? Let's just say that. As Marcelo mentioned, it's the communication between discarnates and incarnates, and the medium provides that intermediary to really offer that way to communicate, or that phone system, so to speak, right? To connect with the spiritual realm. And it's also present in all individuals, like Josiah said, and Marcelo, very well presented it. It can also present itself or manifest itself, I should say, in various ways, depending on the moral stage of each medium. This is an important part that we learned from Spiritism. The moral component of the medium is critical for mediumship to flourish. So basically, as the medium serves as this connection or intermediary between the physical and the spiritual plane, that is, right, it serves as a translator, right, between incarnates and discarnates. But the moral conditions of the medium it's pivotal here for us to understand the repercussion of the mediumship. Why? Because spirits, who are the ones communicating, are the ones influencing, are the ones providing inspiration, advice, teachings, and whatnot. The spiritual entities, so to speak, they will sync, or they will connect, they will really attune based on the moral conditions of the medium. Allan Kardec, by the way, created the word mediumship. The very first time the word was ever produced in the world was through Allan Kardec. And he summarizes really well, whereas mediums, we have two main categories of mediums. This is also a difference between what we learn from mediumship in Spiritism and other theories out there. As we learn, there's two types of mediums: physical effects mediumship, or really the where spirits manifest through movements, noises, ticking walls, and all the transport of objects, materializations, and whatnot. Very common in the 19th century, all over the world. Less common now. But now, the other piece of that is the mediumship of intellectual effects, which is really where spirits communicate themselves through intelligent, affinity or communications, ideas, writing, psychography, or channeling, and all those things. So those are the two main characteristics of mediumship. But let me just rephrase, let me just repeat once again. It really is based on the moral upstanding or the moral condition of the medium. I think
I'm
you're
on
mute.
mute. Sorry
Yeah,
about that. Technical stuff, guys. Thank you so much, Flavio, for answering that. So, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and go to we're going to round robin style. We're going to go to the other questions that we received for each of you as well. And we will also weave in the questions for Jusada, if that is all right with you guys.
you are confusing us now, Kirsten. Oh my
I
God.
know. I'm so sorry.
Jesus.
I'm trying to keep on your toes. I'm trying to keep on your toes.
It's
Keep
only
the blood
Sunday morning.
rushing.
I
Keep
only had
the
like 4 coffees. No more than that.
trying to keep the adrenaline flowing, Flavio. It's important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to start out with question 1 that is for Marcelo, and based on chapter 34. And I'm going to bring it up for you here, guys, in just a second. Bear with me. And so, question is, we find in Matthew 26, verse 41, the recommendations from Jesus to, quote, watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation, end quote. What do these words mean to Christians in general and spiritists in particular?
Well, for the Christians in general and the Spiritists, as Spiritists, we follow Jesus' guidance, so that wouldn't be that different for us to say according to Spiritism or according to Christian teaching. So it basically would mean for us to be watchful all the time. So to watch how we are, how we feel, how is this environment around us, and so we can see what are the things that are may allow us to fall, may make us fall into temptations or deviate from the path. Let's say that from the path from the right path that we have. For example, just giving an example, if I know that like I previously said about gossiping, if I know that I have this tendency to gossip, to point out people's mistakes and their behaviors, and if I go and interact with people that also do that, I need to be very watchful so I won't join that kind of conversation. So it's something that I do know that I have within me, and I do know that I will face people that also have that. So let me be watchful so I can try to change the subject of the conversation, or I'll try not to engage with that. So that's just to give one example of how we can be watchful. And of course, for us to watch and pray means that we, as like we just said about mediumship and about disconnections and this how we receive this from the spiritual world, how we receive this influence from the spiritual world. So I know that once I am in some environment, there will be spirits around us, as Paul, the apostle, taught us that we have a cloud of witness around us. So we have those spirits around us trying to influence us to do good things, or also those who want us to go to another path. So by praying, what do I do? By praying, I will be connecting myself to the good spirits. So I'll be receiving their help, their influence. So I can, let's say, create a barrier around me to protect myself from those thoughts that may influence me to go to the wrong path or to fall into temptation. So I think basically we can say that like watch because we can see what are those things that trigger devices that we have, and pray so we can connect ourselves to the good spirits so we are able to protect ourselves and to move to the right path.
Excellent, Marcelo. It seems like we just have to constantly be self-aware, right? Just constantly being vigilant. So it is a lot of work, but it's blessed work that and valuable work we need to do on ourselves. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So our next question is going to be for Flavio, and just to throw you through a loop, Flavio, it is going to be a Jusada question. And that question is, sorry, wrong one on the screen. What does Spiritism teach about mediumship? If I am a Spiritist medium, what should my goal be for using this capability?
Great question. I think we've touched that on our previous answer, right? So Spiritism teaches us the ins and outs of mediumship. What are the characteristics? What are the duties and responsibilities, and also rights, as we all are mediums. We've touched on that, again in our previous answer. If I'm a Spiritist medium, what should my goal be for using this capability? Is really to use that as a tool, like other tools that we have, our intelligence, or the way we speak, the way we present, all those faculties that we have, so to speak, in order to help others, in order to really help humankind progress as a whole. And mediumship is no different.
Perfect. Well said. Next question is for Marcelo. Marcelo, how should we be watchful? What are the personal attributes we need to be specially vigilant?
Well, that's not easy to be watchful. And uh, how should we be watchful? I think the first thing, like knowing that we should be watchful, is the first step, because once I know that I can, for example, receive this influence from the spirit world, I can know how I feel in certain places. I can know how I feel, how I face certain situations. So I think, going back to what I said in the beginning, to know thyself. Like the more I know myself, the more I know how is the normal Marcelo from my daily activities. And if I notice that there's something wrong, that I'm not behaving as I usually behave, or I'm not being like the normal one that I am. So let's watch why is that happen? What's happening around me or within me that is making me have that change. And so I think so. I think the answer for the personal attributes to be vigilant, I think the first one would be that, to know ourselves. So the more I know myself, the more I know if that there is something that is going to trigger a vice or a bad behavior that I have, if there is something that I should avoid. Or so it's basically like the more I know myself, the more I will be able to be watchful, and the more I will be able to try to deviate from those vices, temptations, and from the wrong path, and going back to the right one. It's not easy, of course. It's not easy, but I think it's a daily exercise that we need to do.
Well said, exactly, for sure. It's not easy. So next we have Flavio, question that goes to you. What is considered the most effective way to connect with the higher spiritual beings, and why?
Yeah, once again, I think Marcelo touched on that a little bit, right? To watch and pray. I would say make sure you're watching yourself, not others, right? When Jesus said watch and pray, it's for us to watch our own selves, not keep watching the lives of others. That's gossip. Just a hashtag just saying. But anyways, bottom line is the most effective way to connect with higher spirits, or as Ellen Kardec very wisely said, the best way to drive away unhappy spirits is to attract the happy ones. And that can only be done through affinity, through our moral upstanding, and our thoughts and actions will actually dictate which spirits will be quote unquote attached or connected to us. There's no other way, folks, right? The only way for us to connect with higher spirits is for us to really live more upstanding lives, more lives that are really following Jesus' teachings and Jesus' life himself as he lived. The more we become like Jesus, the more or the better quality of spirits we will be attracting to ourselves.
Well said. Exactly. And next, we're going to be going to Marcelo. Next question that we received. What are some common behaviors in our day to day life? The spirit author Andrea Louise alerted us against, and what are their effects to our fluidic field? It's a good
Yes,
question. Yeah.
that's a good one. So let me just double check the book here because Terezinha Oliveira, she brings that very well written. And so for me just to bring all those examples that she brings to us from the book by Andrea Luiz. So a few ones. For example, one of them that she brings is the unfortunate attractions in the field of sex or ambitions that may even lead to spirit obsession. So just to bring this one, if we have these unfortunate attractions, or that means as we see for if we see on the sexual side, on the sexual field, if we are using that with some old behaviors that we may have had in the past, and Andrea Luiz, he brings that very well in many of his books. We may fall into, or as Flavio said about attracting the spirits, or having this affinity with the spirits, if I am having issues with sex, with drugs, alcohol, or even like food, if I'm eating too much or more than I should or could. So I will be attracting, I will be creating those affinities with those spirits, and that will have influence in myself, in my behaviors, and will affect, for example, our fluidic field. And one example that Terezinha brings, that Andrea Luiz well explains in his books, is on the day for a mediumistic meeting or a spiritist meeting, for example. Depending on the way we behave, depending on what we eat or what we do, that will affect our fluidic, our spiritual body, and the fluids that we have and that we carry with us. So, for example, if I am going back to the chapters about mediumship from Jusara's explanation, if I am an ostensive medium, or even if I'm not an ostensive medium, but if I'm going to be working in a spiritist meeting, a mediumistic meeting, on that day, if I have one of those behavior, like for example, if I use drugs or alcohol on that day and I go to the mediumistic meeting, that will affect the fluids that I carry, that will affect the way that I can be helpful, that I'm going to help the spirits that will be attending the meeting. If I'm an ostensive medium, that will also affect my connectivity with the high elevated spirits that will be there in the mediumistic meeting, just to give a few examples. So that will affect the whole meeting, not only me, but all the spirits that will be there working, all the incarnate spirits that will be there working, all my colleagues, all my friends. So just for us to know how one behavior that I have may affect so many spirits, incarnate and discarnate, around us, by having this influence to the fluidic field that I have, to my spiritual body. So it's not only about us, but also about the ones around us, how one behavior, one vice, one temptations that we may fall can affect many other around us as well. It may be a little complicated to understand, but I hope I could like summarize a little bit.
No, that was great, Marcelo. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's not an easy task. I mean, none of this is. But we're going to go ahead and hop to our next question, and it's going to Flavio. Is mediumistic faculty a privilege? And if it's not, why do so many people are using it and continue to use its, quote, power to influence others?
Before I answer that, Kirsten, I must say that I think Marcel's getting all the difficult questions and not me, but that's okay. Better him than me. So I would say, as we learned from Spiritism, mediumship is definitely not a privilege. It's not a special concession by all means, but rather a human faculty, right? We all have it to a greater or lesser extent, right? According to our needs and according to the work that we have in front of us to help others. That's the basics of mediumship, okay? So why do people still use that to this power, quote unquote, power to influence others? I would say, based on my humble opinion, is that they haven't learned the true meaning of mediumship. They haven't learned the blessings that we receive when we really carry out that activity in a way that it's really towards assisting others. It's really towards extending a hand to offer a message, to offer a a healing opportunity, or to offer a consolation. There's a lot of folks out there that need some help, as we know, right? There's a lot of folks out there that have some deep, tragic thoughts in their heads, and mediumship is a way, either through the channeling of books or messages, or even through intuition that we all have, to really help others. But if we're not using that in that sense, if we're not using that to really assist or bring some consolation to others, it's because we haven't really learned the concept or the basics of mediumship. That's what I think. People are still using that wrongfully. By the way, I must add, right? This faculty wrongfully, used. What are the consequences? I think the part of the question is, what are some of the consequences of this? Absolutely, everything that we do in our world, in our life, we are responsible for it. Every heart that we console, every mind that we clear, it's brownie points for us in the spiritual world, right? And if we can use mediumship to help us do those, absolutely we should. But at the same time, if we really enter in a way of leveraging mediumship, not for the betterment of society, of humankind, of others, we're actually bringing more debts to our own spiritual accounting, so to speak. So we got to be really careful how we use mediumship. Definitely not a privilege, not a special concession by all means. We all have it, and we all should use towards the betterment, the enlightenment of others. As we talked on here before, watch and pray. That's also an avenue, an area that we have to be vigilant about what we do with it.
Well said, Flavio. And before we go off to the next question, Flavio, if you don't mind, since you're speaking and I had a question, if it's okay with you, if I kind of ad lib here and just ask you a question along the lines of what you were sharing, because I was making us think about the future of our society, and if you can speak to this, is there any indication in the literature or just looking at what has happened thus far within humanity when it comes to mediumship? Is mediumship something in the future that more individuals will have access to or be more tapped into, based on what you read and what you can kind of deduce or formulate a hypothesis for the future? Do you think it's a possibility that more folks, it'll be more common than it is now?
I don't think it's a possibility. I think it's a reality. And that's actually what Allan Kardec told us in the Medium's book. He said that more and more, as society gets more evolved, as humankind becomes more connected with higher spirits, more mediumship will be present in our day-to-day lives. So it's just a consequence of us progressing as humans, right? As us progressing, not looking at my little guy here. That's
Yoda.
Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda. It's as we progress as humans, that's just a natural consequence of us getting more connected with spirituality and therefore leveraging mediumship for more things that we do.
I feel like it's something for us to really look forward to in a sense as we continue progressing on. Thank you, Fabio, for Marcelo,
may I
please
add
go ahead.
just one point on that? Because we have in the spiritual literature, if we read in some books by Humberto de Campos, by Chico's psychographer Humberto de Campos, and also his own mother. There's a book, Cartas de uma Morta, letters from that woman or deceased woman. I wouldn't know how to best translate that to English, but there are some books that they explain what life is in other planets, more evolved planets, and they point out exactly what Flavio said, that they first of all, that they know that the spirit world exists, and many of us here on planet Earth still do not believe in spirits or in life after death. And on those planets, they do know that there is like a reality for all of them, and they do have these connections. Like they do know that the spirits are there helping them, and they are all spirits, and so it becomes more common, exactly as Flavio explained. So we do have a few examples from other more evolved planets if we look into other books that we have available.
That's excellent, Marcelo. And hearing you and Flavio talk, it makes me think about how, each one of us have professional careers, right? Each one of us, we get up every day, maybe it's virtual or remote, but we have professional careers. And I can't help but wonder, and I feel like probably many others wonder the same question, how do we incorporate, or how do we find a balance between, um, having to live our professional lives while simultaneously living into our values and recognizing that we're all mediums. So my question, it could be for either one of you, if you wanted to pipe in or share any thoughts, or if you want to pass, that's okay too. Because I realize these are curveballs I'm throwing at you guys. Have you found a way to balance living into your values, your value system, in everything that you understand about spiritism, and incorporating it into your professional life? How is that balance struck, or are there complications? As I'm sure we've gotten questions before in the past about this. So just curious as to what feedback you may have learned, whether through reading, through or anecdotal experiences you wanted to share. Can go to either one of you.
Okay, no, I can I can start. So a way to balance that, like for example, one simple thing that I do, like every day before I start working, I do a reading and a prayer. Not only for me, but I pray like on my prayer also for all the team that will be working with me. So I think that is very helpful for me to start every morning with that. And every time I face a difficult situation or some issue, I do the same, and like to be watchful if I see that I'm behaving differently. There's something happening. Let's see what's happening. I always try to do that. Of course, many times I do not. I will only think about doing that later on when the problem is already happening, and it's more difficult to stop and okay, let's breathe. Let's take a moment to see how I can receive this help from the good spirits. And also, as like I work as a journalist, so there are many tough news that that come every day in my daily activities, and I really need to watch some very tough videos and some really difficult things. So I think praying is also helpful. So every time I face any news that it could trigger a few emotions in me, or I stop and also pray for me and for those who are involved in those news that I will be reporting, for example.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that and taking that curveball. It's not an easy thing, definitely. And I think that leads us to the next idea that, and I'm going to pose this is your next question to Flavio. We talk about all the hardships that we're going through, and so many of us throughout the globe, there is so much suffering that goes on, and paid mediumship seems to be one of those things that some folks are leaning towards. They seek it out because they want some sort of comfort. So Flavio, the excuse me, the question that's posed to you is, why should I not charge for practicing my mediumship, even if I'm using it to help others?
Thank you, Kirsten. Before I answer that, I want you to maybe go a quick comment on the previous curveball
Oh,
question.
sure,
Yeah, 'cause
please.
I always have something to say, right? When we look at the way we should conduct our lives as spiritists, we're not only spiritists at the Spiritist Center. We are spirits 24/7. Even when we sleep, our spirits, us in spirit, we leave our body and we go and congregate and really confabulate and stay close to our loved ones. But I think when it comes to carrying out our lives, professional, personal, with our families, at work, in society, everywhere, we should always try to connect our behaviors with the ones that we learn from Jesus. And I also remember Ellen Kardec wrote in the Spirits book, question 459, if I'm not mistaken, about the influence of spirits into our thoughts and actions. And then the answer was, when I first read this, I was a teenager, I was sort of shocked. Whereas the spirits would say, the influence upon us, right, is even greater than we can suppose. Very often or very frequently, they are the ones that are guiding us. So if we understand this, that we have this amazing, team of spirits helping us, guiding us, influencing us, it's more natural for us to try to connect with them in a good way, or to connect with the good spirits or the evolved spirits, and they will help us carry out our activities. So if there are situations that are unethical, borderline, it's going to make somebody really upset, or it's really going to go against what we learn from Spiritism, we should try to abstain ourselves from doing it. Yeah, I know it might be difficult, but as we progress into this whole idea of behaving more like Jesus, that's the only way to go. In our professions, in our family relationships, with our friends, with our employers, with our employees, right? Treating everybody with respect, providing a good place for everybody to be themselves, to be open and okay with it. Again, these small things that mean a lot to a lot of people. If we don't do these things, how spiritists are we being, not only to ourselves, but to those that we're talking to, right? I think that's really important. We should all try to carry out our activities in that sense. So to answer that question, why should I not charge? Thank you for putting that on the screen because I almost forgot it. Why should I not charge? Charge, right? Not change. Charge for
Charge.
practicing my mediumship, even if I'm using it to help others. I think it's what we've talked before, right? We have to give free or freely what we have received for free. We did not pay to become mediums. We did not really, that was actually given to us for free from our, God, from our Creator, and therefore we have to transmit that freely towards others, which is different. For example, as you're talking about professions, you went to school to be a nurse. You went to school to be a journalist. I went to school to be an engineer. They require time, effort, dedication, commitment, sacrifices. Therefore, I should be paid for my occupation, my profession. Even if you went to school for mediumship, even if you went to learn mediumship, that's not something that you've acquired through your own conditions only, right? So it was actually given for you or to you, so you could carry out bigger and greater things for humankind, for humanity, and for our own selves. Because every time we practice mediumship, we also learn, we also progress. We are the most beneficiaries of doing that, right? In a way that we're helping and assisting others.
Well said. Thank you for the explanation, Flavio. And Marcelo, our next question is going out to you. As a natural skill and faculty, why are some people fully developed as mediums and some are not?
That's a good question, and I will split this question in two. So the first one, why are some people fully developed? So let's speak about that and about our physicality, about our physical bodies. Because if we go to the spirits book, to the mediums book, if we read a few of the books from André Luiz, we see that our capability as being ostensive mediums or not, it is within our physical bodies. So there are things that we are born with that allows us to have this to be an ostensive medium or not. So the first point I would say, okay, maybe I was born or was not born with this capability. But let's go a little back to before we reincarnate. Because we do know that we have a reincarnatory plan. So all of us, it's not by chance that I was born in a certain city with a certain family and I have some physical characteristics, and it's not by chance that it happens. It happens because it was planned. So the same way that there was this planning for me to be the person that I am today, one of the points of that planning was if I was going to be an ostensive medium or not. So if I was going to be born with that capability or not. And the answer for that, why some people may have this ostensive mediumship and some people may not, that's a very personal answer. And for example, why was I born? Why was I born in Brazil? I don't know. Maybe me as a spirit before I reincarnate, I knew why I was going to come back this lifetime in Brazil. Why I was going to move later on to the U.S. Why I am like 6'4" tall, and why do I have like dark hair and now gray hair, and maybe there's an answer, of course, for that, and there's also an answer for for me. For example, I'm not an ostensive medium, so there is a reason for that. I may try by knowing myself to understand why I am or why I'm not an ostensive medium. But I think the best way for us to deal with that, so instead of me spending my whole life trying to understand why I am not an ostensive medium or trying to be something that I know that I will not be able to be, just to accept, okay, I'm not an ostensive medium, but I have this influence. I am a medium somehow. So how can I work with what I have in my daily life? So the same way, instead of if you you watching us, you are an ostensive medium, instead of trying to understand why you're an ostensive medium or what's the reason for that to happen, try to see what you can do with that, how you can work with those faculties that you have to be a better person and also to help the ones around us. Because that why question, many times I keep asking myself why for many things that happen to my life, many things that happened since the day I was born. But I see that the more I ask those questions, the more I see, okay, I cannot spend too much time trying to understand that. That's better to act with what I have. At least for me, it works better that way.
Well said. And right along those lines, Marcelo, as we transition to Flavio's question, um, we see people that have this amazing ability to console so many people, and even for those who maybe who have for lack of a better term, a lighter mediumship. We can't help but ask, and then this question was asked, as I'm going to posing it to Flavio. So what's the purpose of the spiritual work that we know as mediumship or mediumistic capabilities or exchanges? What is the purpose of this existing in our world?
I would say, Kristen and Marcelo, I would say the purpose of any spiritual work is to bring consolation, to help, to assist, to extend a hand for those who are in need. Any spiritual work, mediumship included. But I think more so with mediumship because we know the dangers of not doing so through mediumship. The moment we start charging, I think there was also a question coming up later, or the moment we start charging, we put ourselves at risk. But anyways, that's why obviously we respect other traditions, other religions out there that they charge for their work. We respect that. We spiritists learn a little differently in a way that we have to give everything for free that we freely received. Meaning, when you go to a spiritist center, everyone that's working there is doing so in a volunteering method. Nobody's getting paid to do anything, any work, any activity at the spiritist center. being, passes, being a talk, or fraternal counseling, anything. Everything is free. That's the philosophy that we follow. That's what we learn from Jesus, mediumship included. And once again, you're on mute, Kirsten.
So sorry, guys. I have a thing in my throat today, so I don't want to make much noise as I'm. In any event, thank you, Flavio, for sharing that. Well said. And which leads us to our next question from Marcelo. How come some mediums do not know that they're able to connect and have exchanges within the spiritual world? So we have, all this, this ability for certain people that are able to give consolation, and there's so much suffering in the world. But how come there are some people that are even outside of Spiritism who don't know that they have this ability or not able to connect and have exchanges with the spiritual world?
Yeah, that's a good question and a good point that you said, even outside the Spiritans, because one of the reasons may be that there are many people that do not believe in the spiritual world. So they may be having that influence, they may be able to, they may be actually having some medium mystic capabilities or experiences in their lives, but they won't see that as a spiritual exchange. So many times we see people may say they have mental issues, some physical problems. They may think that, for example, I may be receiving influence all the time, and instead of facing that, okay, I am really inspired today, so my guardian angel is really helping me. I may say, no, I am really good at what I do, and it's all myself and my own work, because we know that in all the work that we do, we have this influence from the spirit. So even though, like, if I'm cooking and I pray, something like that, for example, just to use a very like basic example in our daily life, if I pray before I cook, I know that I may be receiving the influence of the good spirits for the food that I'm preparing, for the environment where I am in. And many times, if I do not know about that, I may just think that all the work, all the things that I do in my daily life, just the reason that I do the way I do it because I am the way I am, and not because I do receive the influence from the spirits. And another point is that many times, going back to know thyself, many times we do not observe ourselves, so we do not know how we truly are. By observing ourselves, we can be able to see in the some situations in our life where we are receiving that influence, no matter if it is a good or a bad influence, because we need also to face that many times the mediums are not connected with good and elevated spirits all the time. And times there will be suffering spirits that will be connecting to them to receive the help they need. Many times there will be some spirits trying to deviate us from our path. So by knowing themselves, by knowing how I am in my daily life, and if I notice there's something different there, I will know that, okay, at this moment, I am receiving this influence from the spirit world. Why is that happening, and what can I do with that? So I think, again, know thyself is a very good tool for us for that as well.
That's a good point, Marcelo. I have sort of a follow-up question, and this is both to you and Flavio, if you want to answer this. Is it possible to be a good medium and not know that you're a medium and still provide consolation and do good?
%100% yes. 100%. Because it goes back to what we said before. It really connects with the moral upstanding of the person. I mean, we see a lot of these, old ladies and really assisting and helping and consoling and really praying for. They may not even know they're being assisted. They may not even know the mechanics of mediumship. They may not know what's happening with their perispirit, the really couples with the spiritual being. For them, no, they just know they're doing the right things for their neighbors. So with that lack of knowledge, that's not a prohibition for somebody to really feel that mediumship or to understand what they're doing. They may call it whatever they want to call it, but it really goes back to their moral upstanding, right? Their moral condition, as well as their interest to help others. Andrew Lewis said something very, very interesting that it's in the book The Missionaries. He said every time we volunteer to do any kind of work, any type of work that's going to assist others, a group of spirits get attached to us so that we can carry out that activity successfully. It doesn't say spiritists. No, it doesn't say religious. No, it could be an atheist that's trying to help humanity through the research of a new molecule that's going to cure cancer. There'll be several spirits helping that individual. He or she may not even know what mediumship is. It doesn't matter, folks, right? It doesn't really matter. So absolutely, the answer is yes.
And I would like just to complement to add just one like simple example. If let's suppose I'm not feeling good today, and someone comes to me and give me a hug with really good intentions of helping me, that person may not know, but that person may be like helping me to receive good fluids. There may be spirits around that person helping, like it would be like as a healing pass or a pass that we have in a mediumistic center, but that person may have no idea that he or she is being like a medium at that moment and helping the spirits to give me the fluids that I need.
Yeah. These are great points, guys. Thanks so much for taking this this question. And just lastly, I wanted to kind of add something in one of the books from Andrea Louise. It's the book Between Heaven and Earth. There's an example of a character in the book. I want to say his name is Mario, but I could be butchering or creating a name that doesn't exist. But in any event, this particular gentleman, he works in healthcare, and Andrea Louise, much to his surprise, tells the story of how these spirits, the really good spirits that come from a Catholic, if you could say a Catholic background, they were nuns that were assisting people in this particular hospital. And they actually, and when this Mario, let's call him that, when he was going through hardship, personally, these same nuns actually came to his assistance and sort of intervene on his behalf. So we see, it's not just spiritist spirits, it's everywhere out there. It's anyone, because God's children, we are vast and we are everywhere. So just wanted to add that in as a little tidbit, something interesting that you can find in that book as well. Any final comments before we move on to the next question, which will go to Flavio? No. Okay. So Flavio, I'm a medium. Let's just say hypothetically, I'm a medium. I don't have a job. I focus 100% of my time in helping others. Does that mean I can charge for the help that I'm providing? Why or why not? And by the way, this is a common question we get from non-spiritists and those who actually practice in the arena, if you will. So it's a hot topic question.
It is, and I'm going to answer that using Jesus' words a little bit that can help us really facilitate the answer. Jesus said, or asked us rather, not to make anyone pay for our prayers, right? He even used the analogy of don't be like the scribes who, under the pretext of long prayers, they went and devoured widows' houses. They did that, right? Let's not be like scribes doing that. But more so, because mediumship should be a practice of charity, should be a practice to help others. But if we connect that with a normal service that we go and order or we go and pay for, let's say we want to go and get our hair done, or we want to go and get a massage, or whatever service that we're trying to get, and then we go to that institution, and then we ask for the service, then the person says, I'm sorry, I can't do the service. Do we have to pay for the service that we have not received? Probably not. But I'll go even a step further. God does not sell benefits that he grants. So why then would someone like us, right, try to sell or try to really be the benefits distributor, but we cannot guarantee, right, their obtainment. So if somebody comes to us, hey, can you help me talk to my grandpa who passed away, and then I charge for that, we all know the spirits that are gonna get close to us every time we charge might not be the best spirits out there, right? We know that. We've learned that through spiritism. And the fact that we can never guarantee the really final product of mediumship, we shouldn't be charging for it at all. Even if you don't have a job, even if you can't support your family, find other ways to support your family. Find other ways to support yourself, to bring the bacon home or to bring the bread home. And then, if possible, just volunteer a few hours of your day, of your week, or your month through mediumship or towards mediumship. But absolutely, as we learn through spiritism, that's a very dangerous proposition or place to be if we charge for mediumship, because it's not something that we can.
Thank you, Flavia, for that, and the reminding us of the powerful words of Jesus. Still today they ring so true, more than ever. And thinking of Jesus and thinking of Christ and the messages that he left for us to ruminate on and to think about. A question to Marcelo: what was Jesus referring to when he said, "Destroy the temple, and in 3 days I will have it. I will have it to rise up." That's in John 2:19. And why is this an important message to us, as we know that a lot of Jesus's messages, if not all, are still relevant for us today?
Yeah, this one, let's think a little bit about that. Jesus, he's been with us with planet Earth, like since day one, helping not only the planet itself, but all the beings here on Earth. And like 2,000 years ago, he incarnates here on Earth to be this model and example to all of us. And in order for Jesus to be here, to come here, to be among us, he had to incarnate in a physical body. So his physical body was a temple. He used his physical body as a temple so he could do the work that he needed to do while here incarnate among us. And that's exactly what he says that, and it's also a reminder for all of us that we do have our bodies here on earth too as a temple, because we need to remind that we are spirits and we incarnate here on earth for us to progress, for us to evolve. So the body is the best tool that we have here for that. So that's why we are incarnate beings, incarnate spirits here, because we have this physical body and we need to use, like always, Jesus is the best example, the way he used his physical body during his years here to be a model and an example, a guide to all of us. And by following his steps, we can see that we too need to see our own bodies as a temple and to use it the best way for us to do the work that God want us to do here, and the best way for us to use it as a tool for us to evolve, to become a better person. Then when it's time for us to go back to the spirit realm, we will go back like with being better than when we came here during this incarnation.
Marcelo, hearing you talk and thinking about mediumship and thinking about, Jesus having said that to the people of that time, makes us think about how, there are times where, when you think about mediumship and there's so much complexity to it, and when you're talking about mediums that are giving consolation, and sometimes even on rare occasions they might be sharing with you things that may be to come, and there are lots of stories from Chico Xavier, the spiritist Brazilian medium, as well as Divaldo Franco from a spiritist Brazilian medium as well. I don't want to say predicting, but just kind of sharing some things. There were some future steps that were happening, and there's some, like I said, there's some stories surrounding that. But having said that, and this question goes to Flavio, it begs the question, where can I learn more about safe mediumistic practices or mediumship practices? Because there's so much that goes into it. There's so much complexities, when it comes to energy and balance and vibration. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'd say let's learn from the master, from the professor, the teacher, right? That brought to humanity the idea of mediumship, who is Allan Kardec. He was the one I mentioned before that coined the term mediumship. Before him, folks had an idea of communication with spirits, but it was never, before the publication of the mediums book, there was never such rigorous study guide or platform for us to study mediumship. So I would suggest to look for study groups, look for spiritist centers where you live, where serious studies take place, and obviously learn about spiritism. Get the basics covered, get the concepts, get the ideas, and then get ready to begin studying mediumship, right? Because it really requires a more commitment, more dedication, and a prerequisite, so to speak, that really comes through that continuous study that we all have in our spiritist centers. That'll be my suggestion, Kirsten.
Perfect. Which leads me into the next question, and this is a question that just kind of comes to us in this moment, along the lines of what Flavio is saying. So, Marcelo, in that context, why would or how is prayer and being watchful important as it relates to mediumship or
Yeah, it is
everyday life,
important.
really? Because right,
Yeah,
everyday life.
yeah, but connected to mediumship, because if we do know that through prayers we are connecting ourselves to higher spirits, to our guardian angels, and to spirits that are here to help us. If I am a medium, if especially if I'm an extensive medium, and by doing that, I will be receiving the influence and the help of those spirits, and I will be creating that affinity, as Flavio well said in the beginning of our talk here, that affinity with the elevated spirits. So they will be with me, they will be willing to help me in my daily work and in my work as a medium as well. So that way I know that I will be more protected, I will be more guided, and then help me with mediumship, without mediumship, in my daily work, in my daily activities at home, at work, whatever I go. If I pray, if I allow myself to receive this help and connect myself with those spirits, I know that I will be well guided. And like, even if it is to receive an influence for some questions that I have, some doubts that I have in my daily life, I know that I will receive that influence, that intuition and inspiration that I need to have the best choice.
Well said. Guys, we're coming up to our final moments here, but what we would ask is just in 1 to 2 sentences, can you just share your final thoughts and anything you want others to sort of take away from this moment?
I can kick
Flavio,
off,
please.
Kirsten. I think we're all talking about great things here, right? Mediumship, helping others, practicing really spirituality or spiritist ideas towards others. Let's try to reconnect with the one that we really aspire to be like him more and more, which is Jesus. I think a lot has been said. You should do this, you should do that, but oftentimes we forget to go back to the basics and learn more about Jesus. Learn more about his stories, his words, his advices, his counseling to all of us. He mentioned about not to charge through prayers, not to charge through any activities. He mentioned all these things to us. However, us humans, we sort of changed the message a little bit throughout the years. I think the call to action for all of us now is, thanks to Spiritism, we're able to really reconstruct the original Christianity that Jesus have left us 2,000 years ago. That was changed based on a lot of different needs throughout time. But if we are able to connect, if we're able to have him as our utmost inspiration for all of our actions, mediumship included, everything that we do, 24 by 7, the more and more we'll connect with higher spirits, with happier and also more evolved spirits. and the more blessings or the more blissful lives we'll all live.
Well said, Flavio. Marcelo, did you have anything to add?
I think one thing that I always like to add when I'm talking about Spiritism is that all these teachings that we have, Jesus' teachings, the teachings that the Spirits brought to us, let's try to use them to ourselves, to grow, to evolve. Because it's very easy for me, for example, to read a text or to watch a lecture and to think, okay, that person should learn that. The other person should have watched this one. And many times it's easy for us to not see like the vices that we still have, all the changes that we still need to do within us. So let's always see that all the tools that we have, let's first try to use that within ourselves. So by being a better person, I will be able to help the ones around me. And so it's like always going to work better. But like, let's always do that. Let's always try to, can be a single lesson in my daily life. Let's see how can I work with that today, or what did I do today that I should have done differently. So by observing ourselves and by bringing those teachings to ourselves, we not only help, of course, ourselves to grow and to evolve, but by that way we're being better examples for the ones around us and helping the whole society as well.
Thank you both so much for being here this afternoon and reminding us to be connected to Jesus, to be connected to self, the divine, and how important that is in our day-to-day lives, and especially in reference to mediumship. So, with that being said, we wanted to do our final prayer for this to close out our session with everyone. And also, just a quick reminder that the next 3 lessons that are coming up as well with Susanna Simoins in chapter 35, the parable of the sower, Peter Hayes. He's doing chapter 36, the parable of the lamp under a bushel, and Daniel Assisi, he is doing chapter 37, the parable of the laborer. Followed by our last live Q&A that will end this course. So join me now in just a very brief prayer in gratitude and thanks for this moment to everyone. We lift up our thoughts, our hearts, our minds with immense gratitude to our Master Jesus. This moment to connect in gratitude to our fellow presenters and their mentors, and the mentors, the spirit mentors that oversee this work of bringing light, shedding light, bringing hope and consolation across the globe and in both realms of life. With gratitude, we thank our dear Creator for these moments to commune with one another on this virtual platform and being able to service so many in need across the globe in a very easy manner. And may all those who are and were connected to us today, or who are watching this video or live stream, may they also feel the soothing balm from our dear Master Jesus. May his love and embrace surround each one of us that are in need. May our hearts be comforted, and may we be ever more inspired. We thank you, and so be it. Thanks so much.